Let's go. Hey, God bless you. I am absolutely excited to greet you tonight. Let me just start with saying happy holidays. I am Pastor Tabitha C. Witten, and I'm here at the Remnant Fellowship Ministries International. And you know what? I am trying to do what I have done for many years. And so I want to just talk tonight to those of us who are dealing with heavy hearts. We call this really, it was typically our soul session, and typically first Wednesday in December, I would try to get a clinician or a person who was skilled in dealing with matters, emotional or mental health situations, to try and help us sort through our grief. I'm not getting this on these other pages. Um, and so I thought tonight I would hold true to that. However, um, I thought we'd not approach this conversation from what I will call a therapeutic or a professional place. I wanted to just have a conversation because so many of us are having issues with grief. So many of us are having issues with loss. So many of us are not knowing how we're going to get through these times. And so I thought, listen, let's just talk. So what I'm going to try and do is make sure that I'm able to connect with you, because I don't want this to be. I want a dialogue. I want to communicate, because I know that that's the thing that will help us the most. What is that? The thing that's going to help us the most is being able to talk through it. Uh, Talk through it. Can you put it on? Can you find my page? Um, yeah. Okay. So chime in. Let me know that you're here so that we can talk, because that's one of the things that will help us, because one of the things that happens when we're dealing with grief is that we withdraw. And I know everybody, if you're dealing with a situation, you've lost someone or you're going through a hard time, um, that's what you do. You withdraw. You just kind of fold in. And so that you don't have to just talk to your walls, what I want you to do is I want to talk to you tonight. Um, I see someone is here. Hey, Bernadette, God bless you. I love you. Would y'all do me a favor as you're coming in? Also, I want you to share, because I want to make sure that we make contact with people north, south, east, and west. We've not changed that desire. And I want to make sure that we are able to help one another. That's what this is. This is not a session where I am claiming to be uh, what I will call the expert on grief. I'm not, and I hope I never am. But I am a person. I am a life that is dealing with grief. And so what we can't do is be afraid to talk about the things that are creating issues for us. Okay, I'm doing better now. Oh, no. No. There we go. There you go. Ain't nobody scared. We just here talking. One more time. Hey, I see you, Latasha. God bless you. One more time as you're coming in, let me know you're here. Hey, Ava, I love y'all. Would you share and would you make someone aware that we're here talking about grief? You know, as common as grief is, did you know that we don't know, we still don't understand grief? I've just come to understand that we don't understand grief. And so what I want to do, you know, I like to give working definitions. I want to talk about what grief is. Grief really is just how we respond to losing our loved one, or how we respond when something that we love is lost. Because it's not just people. It's not just people. Many times we tie grief specifically to a person. But grief is not just losing a person. Sometimes it's losing a position, or losing a possession, or, you know, losing something that means something to you. That is when we experience grief. And what is that? That's when we have this response. And what is that response? It's usually sorrow or sadness. Um, and did you know that all of us are not sad the same way? I didn't know that, man. I thought everybody's sadness was the same. And I think that sometimes because we don't see sad as sad, we miss sad. And so tonight, a lot of us are sad. And, yes, the obvious, when you're sad, you cry. Tell me how when you're sad, hey, Michael, God bless you, Pastor. Hey, Constancia. Hey, Cindy, Mother Reese, God bless you. Thank you. When you're sad, I want to know how do you express your sadness? Since we understand that grief is a response. It's a response to loss. It's a response to loss. If I gave you what the dictionary says, it says that it's deep sorrow, and sorrow is just sadness. What is sadness? It's feeling down. It's when we feel distress. What is distress? Distress is anxiety. We use these words, and many times we don't even really understand what they mean. What is anxiety? Anxiety is when I'm worried. It's when I have that nervous energy is what I call it. And one more time, I'm trying to help us, because a lot of times we are dealing with grief, or our loved ones are dealing with grief, and we don't call it grief. We only call grief what we see at funerals or what we hear over the phone when someone tells us that there's a loss. But we don't always recognize grief for what it is. So sometimes you see people who has that ADHD. That's what they say. They say, they're just busy, just running. That was one of my grief techniques. It's one of my responses. Because one more time, grief is a response. It's my reaction. It's when it's what I do when grief happens, when sorrow happens. I'm not always over in the corner crying, but there's still telltale signs that I am having sorrow. We got to talk about that. So I want to know what your way of, how do you respond to grief? What's been your reaction? My reaction has been past tense. Running. Yeah, I didn't have a lot of crying. I didn't permit the cry from my sadness, from my sorrow. But because grief is natural, I may not let a cry come, but there's still a way that my life expresses or experiences sorrow. And so I just ran. So grief, grief is a response. Grief is a response. It's a response to loss. And let me just tell you that grief is the result of loving. As long as we live our lives and we don't love anyone, we won't ever have to deal with grief. So if you live unlinked, unconcerned, never loving, never trusting, never connecting, you ain't gonna have no problem with grief. But because no life will be lived without linking and loving, I can say very confidently that all of us will deal with grief. All of us are going to lose, because that's the cycle of life. All of us are going to lose our loved ones. All of us are going to have to deal with circumstances and situations that shift us in a moment. And that will create an issue. And we call that, one more time, what you call it? We call that grief. One more time. So grief is how I respond to my loss. One more time. Grief is how I respond. One more time. It's not how you respond. So grief is personal. So please, for those people who love us, don't tell us how to grieve. You can't tell people how to grieve. Somebody ought to be giving me some hearts right now, because I need some love, some hearts and some thumbs up, because you've had people to tell you, you just need to cry. You just need to let it out. But that's just not where you are in your response or in your experience. And so grief is very personal, and no two people will have the same kind of, thank you so much, will have the same kind of response or reaction to sorrow. And every loss that we have won't permit us the same kind of situation. So here's what I'm saying. When my mother passed, my grief was very different from when my sister passed. Very different experiences. So what I'm saying to us is, sometimes we get caught off guard, or we really have issues in our mind, like, what's wrong? This is not how I handled this last time. But it's because every time, every person is its own experience. So it's important that I say to you that grief is a response. It's how we respond. It's my response. Grief is that experience of sorrow, that sadness, that distress, that anxiety, that discombobulation where we can't get our footage. Let me tell you what else it is. It's that experience of exhaustion. So sometimes we only expect to have grief show up emotionally. But when you're numb, if your only reference to grief, or your only, what I would call, recognition of grief is based upon how you feel, what happens when you don't feel anything? Then do you think that you're not grieving because you don't feel? No, my God, my God. You may not be feeling anything emotionally, but let me tell you what happened to me. I didn't have a really deep emotional thing when my mom died. But let me tell you what I did have. I kept going to the doctor. First, my back hurt. My back really hurt. Like, I don't know what's wrong with my back. And then my stomach was really sick. And then I couldn't sleep. So one more time. And I never even really attributed it to my grief, my loss, my doctor. I guess after I had come the third week in a row, my doctor said, is something going on? My God. I'm like, what do you mean? And so he just started asking me these series of questions. Now, I'm a social worker, so I know how to assess. So I knew I was being assessed. And I said, my Lord, my mom, I lost my mom. And he said, oh, so you're grieving. So one more time, I was numb. I wasn't over. I didn't feel, I wasn't having a breakdown. But my body, it was being experienced in my physical. So why am I saying that? Because there's somebody who may not be crying, you may not be what you think is sad, and you may be doing all right, but everything hurts, or everything gets on your nerves. You understand what I'm saying? Or you're just tired, or you're weak. I never knew what being weak was like, just feeling like, well, I did. You have, what is it? I had COVID back in August. And so after my little stint with COVID, if you're really not eating or you've been laying, you just don't feel like you can really take much in. You just feel this weakness. I never knew that your emotional trauma, because I had never experienced it, would cause you to just be weak. Like weak. All right. So I'm saying this because we don't always recognize grief like that, and we don't talk about it. I don't know what's wrong with us, but we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. I don't know why we don't talk about it. I don't know why. I'm serious. It's like people can know you've lost your loved one or something, and it's like, now this was my experience with my mom and my sister. It was almost like, don't mention their name. Oh, I'm sorry. It's like, please don't act like they never lived. Please don't act like they don't matter. And it's okay. It's all right. I get it. One of the things about grief is that For me, I learned, now this is not as a technician, this is as a human being. I learned that you can't time it. Who am I talking to? Yeah. Yeah. To lose your home, yeah. That's a loss. I'm going to tell you, mother, that's a loss. People don't, one more time, it doesn't just have to be a person, because a lot of us are walking around with grief. And because we only consider grief with a person, but anything that's significant to your life and you lose it, it's no longer there, or it has shifted places, that will create suffering for you. That will create a response, which is technically known as grief. And it's hard. Grief is hard. My God, I almost said it's hard as hell. It's hard. Grief is hard because it attacks the heart. It attacks everything about you, your mind, your body, your emotions. Grief is a wholesome experience. It's not just one-dimensional. And I said earlier that we can't time grief, which means in the onset of loss, you may not have what I would call an initial response of sorrow. And I think that needs to be looked at. Here's what I mean. My mom passed in 2011. Can we just talk? Can we just talk tonight? My mom passed in 2011. And so listen, so my mom passed 2011. She passed February the 12th. And let me tell you what happened. I closed my mom's eyes. I left the hospital. I preached the next day. I left preaching the next day to check on somebody else's mother. And, you know, made the arrangements for my mom and just kept going. All right. 5 years later, I want to talk to us and help you to understand this. 5 years later, 5.5 years later, my sister dies. All right. I leave the hospital with my sister and I immediately go into caregiver mode because, you know, I'm concerned about my aunt. And at this time, I'm taking care of my father. So I just keep going. I preached the next day. I preached my sister's service. Of course, you know, the chore if you've ever lost someone, and I know we all have, but I don't know that we've all dealt with having to make those funeral arrangements. I mean, it's nonstop, all right? So it's nonstop dealing with the arrangements for my sister, and I keep going. But let me back up a little bit because my 49th year of life, something wasn't right. And I just kept saying, something ain't right. I want you to hear this. This was 4.5 years after my mom had passed. And I kept saying, something ain't right. Something ain't right. I mean, listen, I was 49, and I knew I was disconnected, and I knew that I just wasn't right. But what I did not consider was that I wasn't going through the change, because that's what I thought. Oh, I'm going through the change. I'm about to be 50. I didn't recognize that I was grieving. Lord have mercy. Listen, so yes, I was having hot flashes. Please be kind. But I'd already been having hot flashes. But I was like checked out, and I was on autopilot. So that means autopilot is where you're able to do what you've always done, like you've always done it, because that's how you do it. So I was in an autopilot place. I was still preaching. I was still praying. I was still singing. I was still doing everything I needed to do. But I was not right, and I knew it. But I didn't know that I was grieving. Y'all ever had that where, you know something ain't right, but you don't consider the something ain't right to be that it's attached to your loss? And sometimes you don't get that it's attached to your loss because you tucked and just kept going. So you don't even know. I'm speaking to somebody right now. You lost something, or you lost someone maybe many years ago, and you are just now beginning to have, you know, those those experiences that are showing up. Maybe you're detached, or maybe you're dealing with, a lot of physical ailments that have no real explanation. And you know why it's so important that we begin to consider this? Because if we are not aware, then we can't take the right action. I know I just helped somebody. I'm trying to tell you. Didn't nobody tell. Listen, everybody was agreeing. No, because I was in such autopilot. Everybody was like, "Oh, what? Ain't nothing wrong with you, Pastor. You need listen. You need a break. You need a vacation." Now, part of that was true, but again, never associated it back to my mother's loss, losing my mother. Never did. Never did. And let me tell you something about grief. When you're not in touch, if you are numb and you know you are not where you're supposed to be, you do some stupid stuff. This is why we got to listen. I'm trying to help us. I'm trying to save a generation. My God. By understanding this grief. Understanding this grief. This grief that is trying to be a Grinch in our lives right now in the holidays. Sometimes we just don't know it. We don't call it what it is. I don't know if that's just culturally. I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes we just don't know that it's associated with our loss. It's a part of loving when we lose in our lives. That sorrow, that response. And sometimes it's not upfront, and then there's something about the way that God has created us. Sometimes maybe it's not upfront or not immediate, because in the onset or in the moment, it may wipe us out. My God, it may take us out. I don't know, but I kept going. So here's the deal. I kept going. And I think that I'm reading this book right now. And let me just say this to all of us who think we know something or we understand something. I'm talking to pastors, I'm talking to leaders, I'm talking to therapists and counselors. We are the worst people, man. We the worst people. I was having a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and Mr. Tammy, Mr. Tammy's the one that always gonna say something. I be side-eyeing her too. But one of the things you cannot deny is the truth. She say, have you recognized you autocorrect? I'm talking about pastors, therapists, caregivers, those of us who think we know something about something. We have this way of not just permitting ourselves to be where we are, because we know. Listen, because I know God is good. So when I start talking about, man, I can't believe it. And I start, well, God, I knew, well, God, that autocorrect, again, and I think we do that trying to, I think it's our own protective behavior. But I'm saying to us, there are three things that I want us to understand. Then we're going to talk. Let me move from this. Three things that I've learned that I really want you to take away tonight. That grief, it's the end. Use the end word with grief. Number one, it's natural. If you are human and you lose someone or something that you love, grief is natural. So let's just throw the end word on it. Somebody shout, it's natural. It's natural. It's like it's part of the experience, and it happens naturally. You don't have to do anything to make yourself grieve. Some people, some of us, like me, I can't wait. When I take these braids out, I'm going to put some chemicals on my hair because I don't want it to be as it naturally is. Now, I don't think everybody's supposed to be natural. I'm talking about for me. So I'm going to do something to cause my hair to be different. All right, because it will automatically, when it grows out naturally, it's going to be what it's supposed to be. What it is without any effort. all right? It's going to be what it is. Grief is natural for humans. We humans. It's natural. So grief is natural. Grief is normal, which means that when I lose my loved one, or when someone loses their loved one or something that they love, we should expect that they're not going to be Superman or Superwoman, and they will have a process of sorrow, however that pans out for them. I don't want to tell people, what their sadness or what their sorrow is, but it's normal. Let's use the N. Yeah, I see you, Jermaine. Yes. Yes, my God. That's it. So listen, one more time. Y'all please share this because there are a lot of people that's hurting. It's natural. You don't have to make grief grief. You don't have to try and make yourself go through sorrow. It's natural. You can't do nothing. When I say it's natural, you can't do nothing about it. You can't do nothing about it. It's just going to be that way. Now, grief is natural. Grief is normal, which means it's to be expected if you lose someone or something that you love. And here's the thing that I've had to get. Here we go. Here's the big end. What's the big end? It's necessary. Jesus. It's normal, it's natural, and it's necessary. If we don't allow our lives to go through this process, this experience of grief, if we don't allow it. Now, you can't stop it, but I say if we don't allow it, then what we do is we really create more harm, or we prolong or allow ourselves to be in a lane of pain longer than necessary. Somebody shout, "That's good, Pastor." I ain't even trying to be your pastor tonight. I'm trying to be your sister, your friend, your cousin. When we don't deal with grief right, okay, let me revert it. So say if you're in a relationship and you break up with somebody and you don't deal with, I'm talking about if you love them, if you don't really like them, you don't really want to be with them, let me just say that too. You don't want to be with somebody that you're with, leave them alone. Just stop that. But if you love someone and something happens, when we don't take time, when we had that breakup, to really go through this process, give ourselves permission to experience sorrow, then what we do is we prolong the pain. We prolong the distress. Y'all better hear what I'm saying. I'm trying to help you now. I'm trying to tell you for real. So you be trying to figure out why you mad for 20 years. Because you would not embrace. Why you still mad? It's because you tried to deny that agony, Jesus, that pain, that sorrow. Sometimes we just have to learn how to surrender to the sorrow. That make you sound weak, don't it? She say, just drop the mic. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's not weak. Here we go. Here's my hashtag. Don't y'all better not steal it. But it's not weak to weep. Jesus. You will become weak if you don't take time to weep. Jesus. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to tell you the things that I learned. So, yeah, Sabrina, I see you. I'm so glad to see you. Man, I'm so glad to see you. Why do we try and avoid? Why do you think we're trying to avoid grief? Don't nobody want to be sad. I mean, I don't know anybody that ain't sick. When I say sick, I mean, I'm talking about where their emotions are not imbalanced. Nobody wants to just be sad and anxious and scattered. So I get why we Why are we trying, disconnect from the experience? With you, my brother, you, my sister, what has been? Yeah, pressure bursts the pipe. Yes, you better weep. Let me tell you something. I have almost decided that I'm not gonna wear lashes for a while. And weeping is a bit deeper than crying. You can cry and not weep, my God. But when you weep, that's an inner soulish experience that is being expressed. And so my question was, why do you think we don't take time or we don't weep? Why are you trying to weep? Why do we try and avoid weeping? Let me hear what y'all saying. And then I got something else I'm telling you. Why don't you cry? Or why don't you take time out? Or why don't you acknowledge, man, I'm in pain? I mean, why do we try and avoid that? Why do you? Why do you? Why do you think people, they try to get away or get around it? Let me tell you why. Some of them myths that messed us up. I'm talking to all of us now. Okay, what are some of the myths? All right, here we go. And then I want to talk about how we're going to get out of this. Here are some of these myths. That crying is a sign of weakness. So that's why people don't want to acknowledge, how you doing? I'm good. Now, I'm not going to lie. There are people that I say I'm good to because they can't do me no good. I mean, like, if I say, oh, man, I'm having a bad day, man, they gonna break down. Oh, my God. So, it's like, I'm good, And let me say this, too, that to say that I'm good does not deny that I'm in pain, or does not deny that I'm having an adjustment in my life. It says that I'm clear that this is part of my process, and I'm all right with it. So when I say, for the benefit of those that are connected to me, so if you check in on, you say, well, how you doing? If I say I'm good, I ain't trying to be superwoman. I'm saying I understand, where I am. I'm not suicidal. I don't feel like I ain't got no hope. It's saying that I'm together. But I'm saying, but it's let it be known that I've determined this round of grief, this round of loss, to connect. And so that's why I, on purpose, just kind of withdrew now, take me off, and I'm not going to preach, and I know some of you spiritual, deep, I know, because that was me, you got to preach your way through it. Well, I ain't got no strength, and I can't focus, I'm trying to read, but I can't, I mean, it's like, everything's a blur. And again, I'm talking about being human and giving myself permission to be human, because if I don't, then what I will do with a responsibility to pour into people's lives and speak to people, you know what I'll start doing? I'll be messing people up, or I'll be mad and angry, or I'll be, come on, talk to me. Somebody needs to tell your pastor it's all right to take a break, especially if they're going through something. I'm trying to help you. And grief is not just losing a life. Some of these pastors and some of these leaders have lost buildings, have lost members. One more time, I'm trying to tell us. And so we put so much pressure sometimes on people that we don't allow them to know, I understand you are a person. Thank God that that's not my experience, but I'm just saying that that's why sometimes certain people don't take that time out, or they try and avoid, or they don't deal with what they need to deal with, or really don't even know yourself. Well, that's good. That's true. Sometimes we don't know ourselves. I'm not allowed to truly have an off day without judgment. Wow. Well, let me tell you this. Let me tell you where I am. When we start talking about not having a day off without judgment, sometimes you just have to say, forget the judgment. You have to choose to not allow the earthly judge to mean more than the heavenly judge. And he's given us permission to take time out. He's given us permission. You know, I don't know where we came up with that. I don't know where we, you know, I don't know. We do it because it strokes our ego. You know, we say that stuff. And then when we go through things, because we've said such crazy stuff, or we've tried to require such unrealistic, what I would call things from people. When we deal with things, I'm talking about leaders now, and then I'm going to get back because I ain't trying to go on no tangent. Then we go through things, we feel this pressure because it's like, well, what they going to think? Well, if I, so it's like, just lighten up. It's okay. One more time. It's natural. It's normal. It's natural. It's normal. It's necessary. So everybody knows everybody's, if they breathe and they human and they hurt. And if you cut them, they're going to bleed. And so what I'm saying is we're going to all be mindful, and we're all going to understand that it's part of this life cycle. If we love. Now, if we don't love, you mean, and you hateful, you disconnected, don't worry about that. But if you are, we're gonna have these kinds of times. So again, these myths that I'm weak if I weep. Listen, that I'm supposed to, as I get older, then I'm supposed to do better with grieving. Who said this mess? So, because I was 45 when my mom passed, but because I'm 56, when my dad passed, I'm supposed to be better. I'm supposed to be better at grief now. Who said that mess? Who comes up with this stuff? And you know what? And we let people tell us this stuff, and we believe it. And so we be sitting over going crazy because but I'm. Listen, that is a myth. Myth just means that's not true. It's what people are telling us, but it's not the truth. All right? The other thing that we have issues with, being angry with God and asking questions is a sign that you have weak faith. I say this, you have weak faith if you don't ask God. Because who else are you going to ask? That's what I want to know. Don't ask me because I don't know. I'm just being real. We have to ask God, my God, how am I going to do this? And sometimes it's not. I think when we ask God, it is a sign of our faith. It is a sign of us saying that, God, you know everything. You in control. That's what I think it is. I don't think it make you weak. I don't. I mean, I don't know. But I'm just saying that you have to be careful that you don't let people put you under all of this stuff, because it will mess you up trying to move, trying to continue to live despite the loss, whatever that loss is. Whatever that loss is. Let me tell you another myth. Your grief, your level of grief communicates your level of love. Y'all, please be quiet. Please be quiet. Please be quiet. So that means that if I cry every day, that means I really love my daddy. Y'all make me sick. Please leave people alone. Again, grief is personal. You understand what I'm saying? And it's not just personal, but it's very different to each person. And, there are all kinds of things. But I'm just saying that there are these things that we have in our mind that's not true. So we got to get through that. Get through that. Get through that. Get through that. Can I tell you something? Sometimes we don't even know that we're grieving before our loved one really leaves the earth. For me, I grieved my mother before she died. Let me tell you what that means. That means because the mother that I knew died before she died. I don't know if y'all have ever dealt with, yeah, that's right. So if you're dealing with someone who has Alzheimer's or dementia or something that causes them to not be who they've always been, then you're losing them. All right. And so it was hard for me to see her, and know that she wasn't the vibrant, get you told, snap, snap. Now, she kind of always kept that get you told. She may not be telling the right person the right stuff. But the mother that I knew passed long before February 12th. So I'm just saying, because there's so many facets and so many different experiences as it relates to loss that we don't sometimes think about. That's why we have to move away from these myths and just permit ourselves to have whatever experience we're having. I mean, give you permission. Sometimes nobody else gives you permission, but you got to give yourself permission, you know. So yeah. Yeah. Yes, that's right. Cynthia, I'm with you. Sometimes, I mean, out of nowhere. One more time. That's because it's just natural. It's just normal. I mean, you don't have to work up a cry. You don't have to work up it. That sorrow is there, and we must not. Here's why I'm saying for us not to try and get away from it, ignore it, or avoid it, because we don't want to have to be. We don't want our lives to get stuck in places, or we don't want to lose our lives because we won't live through what it is we need to live through. There are things you can't get around it. But here is that grace. So I'm calling grief like the Grinch kind of at this holiday time. But I can't just leave us at this is what grief is, this is how we feel, and oh my God. I want to say that there is, one more time, there's a grace for grief. All right? One more time. There's a grace even for grief. I want to say it slow because I know, and let me tell you something. Can I tell y'all something that I've learned? Sometimes you have to be careful because sometimes you'll start having that sorrow, that sadness that's associated with grief. And if you're not careful, you'll start wanting that spirit. And so you'll start doing whatever it takes for that spirit to linger. Listen to what I'm saying. Sad. So, you want to listen to sad music. Sad. So you want to have sad conversations. Sad. So you want to be over by yourself. I'm trying to help us now because I'm talking about trying to help us so that we can recognize some things and understand that even when this spirit is trying to overtake us and cause us to linger in places longer. Yeah, grief is a real experience. We can't get around it, but it doesn't have to be our landing or what I will call, don't pitch a tent there. Don't build no houses there. I'm here, but I want you to get in your mind, but it's not going to always be like this. My God, I know I'm crying. I know I'm sad. I know I can't hardly focus. I know I can't, but I want you to get in your mind, it's not going to always be this way. And I want, for those of us who believe in Jesus Christ, and I know all of us don't believe in Jesus, but for those of us who do have this hope, this faith in Jesus Christ, this is what makes this faith so valuable, because we know that better is coming. My God, I can't imagine. I was telling somebody last night, I said, man, I don't know what people do who don't believe in God, who don't believe that there's some hope for something better or hope for help during these kinds of times. I don't know what you do. I don't know. But thank God, one more time, there's grace. Say it with me. There's a grace. There's a grace. You're already there, Jermaine. Listen, there's a grace. There's a grace. There's a grace. There's a grace. How am I going to make it? Because there's a goodness from God, even right where I am. And I'm going to tell you the passage that has been my save all right in this time. It's Psalm 34 and 18. And let me tell you the passage that I love. I love the Message Bible. You know, I try and be careful with these different translations because I know, but sometimes you need something just speak to you just right where you can get it. And listen to what the Message Bible says. Psalm 34:18. For all of us that are hurting, for all of us that are going through these rough times, this is what I want for you to learn and meditate on. Listen what it says. It says, if your heart is broken, is your heart broken? My God. If your heart is broken, let me translate. If you are grieving, if you are sad, if you are experiencing that anxiety and that sorrow, listen, it says, if your heart is broken, listen, you'll find God right there. Listen. That's grace. If your heart is broken, you'll find God right there. Can I tell you why that is such good news for us when we're in these places? Because truth is, don't nobody really want to hang out with nobody in no bad place. I don't know. Oh, my God. If your heart is broken, you'll find God right there. And then listen, it says, if you're kicked in the gut, that's what I keep saying. My God, this just kicked me in my stomach. It says, if you're kicked in the gut, he'll help you catch your gut. Which means, so if the wind has been knocked out of you, my God, what he'll do is help us get that breath back again. That is grace right where we are. Right where we are. Not for when we move, certainly, yes, grace is around the corner. Yes, sun's going to shine again. But what about right now? What about right here? There's grace for every grievous, every place that this Grinch is trying to show up in. There's grace for that. And my brother already said it. And because God's goodness, what is grace? It's God's goodness that is released to us for no good reason. It's not because we deserve it. Because some of us, when we find ourselves in grief places, we doubt God, we abandon God, we denounce our relationship with God. I'm mad at God. And that's okay. That's okay. God can handle it. God can handle your anger. He can handle your disgust. He can handle it. I love God. He can handle it. So this goodness of God is right where we are in this hard, hurting place. It says, listen, it says, if your heart is broken, it says, he'll find you right there. And if you're kicked in the gut, he'll help you catch your gut. That is good news. That is good news. So I talked some about the meaning. I talked some about the myths. Let me tell you some of the things that some writers, some technicians have determined are good for us when we're in these places. What have you found helpful in your grief place? Y'all help me. I want to know what you found helpful. When I do, this is what helped me. Pastor, now I ain't your pastor tonight, I'm your sister. I'm your cousin. I'm your friend. When I was hurting, or when I'm hurting, or when I deal with my grief moments, this is what I have found to help me. Y'all help us because, we can help one another. Can I tell you one of the things that helped me while y'all are sharing? I know y'all ain't going to believe it, but you might believe it. Screaming. Oh! Jesus! My God! My God. I'm sorry. So I have a tenant upstairs. And so sometimes I just have to do what helps me. And I just start screaming. And I love her because she's so gentle. I love that. Listen to church music. She'll call and she'll say, Pastor Tab, you okay? I know she heard me screaming. I'm not having a breakdown. I'm just having a breakthrough. My God, I'm trying to make sure that I break out, that I get some relief from this pressure, from this profuse sadness. Lord, my God. Now, I don't know. Some of y'all may be too cool to just scream. Yeah. But just scream. I mean, and I know you can't scream everywhere, but you can scream somewhere if you need to. Just walk on outside. Just scream. I see here listening at gospel music, listening to church music, gospel music. Let me tell you what we listen to is so important during these times. And I'm saying again, for this grace and this trying to get up. And I know you have to you have to get there because you're not always there. You know, you're not always there. And so this is not, I'm not trying to push the person that's not there yet, but I am glad that you're tuned in, because I am saying that when you want to turn over, when you want to, if you want a little turn, if you want to, just try and help you, just scream, change the atmosphere, watch what you're looking at, watch what you're hearing. I ain't gonna lie, I knew something was going on with me when my house was quiet. It was just quiet, and I was left to my own thoughts and turning stuff over, and it wasn't all good stuff. But what we have to learn to do is find those things that help us break up that negative, that weighty energy, and when we want to lift that thing, when we want to lift, then we should try some of these things. I saw my brother saying, listening, reading the word, praying, yes, and therapy, yes, God. Grief groups are wonderful. They are wonderful. I suggest grief groups. I suggest that we, listen to good music. Read the word. It's great. It will help a whole lot. Let me tell you the other thing that will help. Journaling. For some people, journaling can't happen in the onset, because for me in the onset, I'm like, in the onset, child, I'm still in the onset. What is you talking about? But I was so distracted initially that journaling, it's like, you start to write, or just, and when we say journal, we're just talking about you just writing down what you're feeling, what you're thinking, maybe what you want, you just take time to write you. You just write you. But that may not be good for everybody. Journaling might not be good for everybody. Reading may not be good for everybody. Artwork. I don't know if you're, kind of artistic artwork, if you like crafts and stuff. We're talking about just shifting that energy. Listen, because grace is there. God is there. God is there. And I'm saying to us, because there is something in us that wants better. Listen, the truth is there's something that wants better, even though sometimes it's buried. It's buried under all that sorrow, buried under all that pain. And so what we have to do is learn how to work with this thing. Not to get away from it, but to get it out so that it does not steal our lives. That's really the whole point in working through grief, because it's natural, you can't get around it, it's normal, and it's necessary. So if it's necessary, if you don't embrace or surrender to this place of sorrow, in a sense, in terms of acknowledging it's what it is, then we get stuck. And so you have to learn, how can I work through this where it don't get me away from my work, get me away from my life, so it don't take me out, even though I'm still here. I see reading, if you're a musician, playing, writing letters to your loved one. Pastor Campbell gave me a book reference. I'm gonna make sure I share all of this stuff, because I believe that we're in this together. And so as you come across things that help you, and I come across things that help me, then what we do is we share. But writing these letters can be helpful with, again, releasing some of that pressure, or helping us to work through it. I'm going to tell you the other thing, exercising. When my sister passed, I say when my sister passed, but my sister actually was murdered. I'm going to tell you when my sister was murdered, I couldn't exercise. It's like, that's how I got so fat. Ow! That is crazy to me. But, my body knows what I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is that physical exertion will help you. And so sometimes what we have to do, again, not everything is for everybody, But there's something that will help everybody to try and work with this process in time, so that we can turn and continue to do what it is God has permitted us time to do. So let me tell you, let y'all know, it was good for you to be alone and drive with no music playing, just in a quiet space, and allow my spirit to receive. Yes, that driving, now that thing is good. Now, I'm gonna tell you the truth though. Y'all know I gotta be silly. I'm gonna need a gas fund though. Oh my God. Driving really, it really is therapeutic. I had an opportunity to just kind of get in the car and just kind of go. I didn't drive without music, because I had that music blasting, but I found that alone, moving, yet not necessarily literally walking about, it has served to be very, very, very helpful for my mindset and to kind of give me that calm, So it's the big end that we need to make sure we remember. It's normal, it's natural, but it's necessary. We're talking about grief. You can't get away from it. If you love and you lose, and in life, that's just a part of a fallen world. That's why I'm so excited that we have another life. My God, we have another existence where death and separation and loss won't be a part of that experience. And that's why we have such hope in Jesus Christ. But I want to tell you, if we're really going to work through this time, for me, there are three things I say. I say stay true. Let's just stay true with you wherever you are, and just know you're grieving, it's part of it. That is so important. Can I tell y'all that I think I'm having such a rough time, emotionally with my dad. Not just because of my dad. In the last 12, 13, 16 years, I've had a lot of loss. I lost relationships. I was going to say churches. But listen what I'm saying. So when I say, and I'm going back, I'm not losing my way, but when I say you can't get around it, what I'm saying is sometimes we snuff it, and then we don't understand why we're having such rough times. I think if I had acknowledged the losses at the time and permitted myself to grieve and to deal with the disappointment and the regret and the all that stuff, if I had just given myself, then, when I get to a place like here, I heard the Lord say to me, no deflection. And I was like, no deflection? It's like, yeah, I'm not going to let you deflect to nothing else. You're going to deal with it. So all of the things, all the things that I've lost, all the people, all of the, it's like, man, I got a wounded heart, but I have grace. And here is what's helping me, to just be honest. That hurt me. Man, that hurt me. Man, that hurt me. Because I'm Tab. What? Child, please. No, that hurt me. That really hurt me. That messed me up. You understand? Take time to deal with that pain in that place where it takes place. And then the last lesson I got from my daddy. Y'all know it. You know it. You know what it is? If I said be true, if I said take your time, give yourself time, y'all got to know what the last one is. Y'all got to know what the last one is. Y'all don't know? Who knows the last one? Who knows the last one? Let me see. Walk and cry. Baby, Arden, I love you, because that is my motto. Walk and cry. Walk and cry. Yes, God. See, that's that scream. Every time I scream now, somebody say, she in pain. Listen, be honest. Tell the truth. You know, that is Jay Wesley. I love you. I love you. That is. Hey, people, it's trust God. Trust God with the time that we have to take for the turn that we need, and in helping us to embrace whatever the truth is we need to tell. We got to trust God. If I would wrap that thing up and put a bow on it, that's what, trust God. Just simple as that, trust God. Trust God. Okay, let me tell you the book. That is, yes, that is, you lost your daddy, but his death brought us back to church, and I love it. Trust God. Listen, y'all, stop that mess. I done told y'all I'm gonna stop wearing these lashes for a while. But let me tell you, and remember that even in the experience of grief, there's an education. There's something that God will make available. That's grace. He'll make it available for your life so that you can learn something about you, learn something about, you know, maybe even your loved one, or learn something that's going to help you be better, or for certain learn something about God. This journeying through grief, a time to grieve. Oh. Listen, it's a series. I'm on the first series. Don't worry, I'll make sure that I put this up. And I had a couple other books that have really been great for just helping me to acknowledge where I am and be all right with where I am, but trust God that I won't always be where I am. And that's what I want for all of us. That's what I want for all of us. All right. Okay. As we close, then I just want you, because we're leaving, if you'd like to just put your loved one's name in, then I'd like to just acknowledge those names for the next 60. Can y'all give me 60 seconds? About another minute? Yeah. Just put the names of your loved one that you've lost. If it's not your loved one, if you know your loved one, I was going to say your church or your position. If you like to, I just like to acknowledge those again, so that we don't. One of the things that I've been saying is, let's not lose the memory, even though we have to make new ones. How about that? So I'd love to just call that name out. And I see you, Minister DJ. And that's how we're going to leave tonight, saying, God, thank you. Thank you for our loved ones. Thank you. Thank you, Ava. I love you. And can I tell you to love your loved ones, to love your family members, love your friends, love the people that God has allowed you to be linked with, because I think that one of the things that grief should teach us is that for real, time is short. And so don't put it off. Thomas Combs, I see it. Don't wait to love your loved one tomorrow. Martha Gray, I see it. God bless you. Praying for your heart, my sister, my brother. Yeah, Mr. John Charles Whitten, Betty and R.J. Keaton, Tanya, Darrell Jr. I see it. Let's have grief night out. Come to my house. Any members that are willing, let's lift each other up. I'm open and ready to be first up. I'm with it. I'm with that. I love that, Annie. Look at that. Did you hear me call you Annie? I love you. Wendy Alexander, praying. Darrell Kamir Jr. Yes. Carolyn Sion. Yes. Praying. What's your uncle John John, please put his name in for me. Admit when you are wrong, ask for forgiveness, and trust God to heal and help us come back to our loved ones in our lives. Hey, I am praying that all of us take the opportunity for reconciliation. Listen, one of the things, reconciliation does not just throw stuff up under the carpet. It doesn't. We have to learn how to have tough conversations. That's what's wrong with us. Nobody wants to deal with the truth because sometimes the truth is tough. But it takes a truth, willing to deal with truth in love. Let me say that because it's like, well, I'm just telling the truth, but baby, you telling it in hate. Let's have truth in love and trust God to turn it. Yeah. I'm praying. I see you, Mother. All the Whittens that have passed on. Yes. Yes. My mother, Cynthia Whitten, Constancia Whitten. John Wade, thank you. Yes. One more time. It doesn't matter. Even after we're gone, I would that you would just remember one more time. We made memories with our loved ones. And some of us maybe we don't like everything that went on. But you know what we can do? We can ask God to heal our hearts. And we can trust that God is going to help us. And you know what we can do? We can dare to do better with the loved ones that we still have here. Listen, there's a grace for the grief so that the Grinch can't use it to steal what God has given us. And the key when God's grace is realized, and I just told you that there's a good, when you realize it, then stay grateful. Lord, thank you. Thank you. Yes, praying for your son, Brandon. I got you. Latasha, I got it. Praying. Yeah, let's do it. All right, I'm going to pray and we're going to get out of here. Can I say thank you so much? One more time, don't forget that God's going to get us through it. It's all right that we're walking through the valley. The what? The valley, we're walking through the what? The what? We're walking through the valley of the shadow of death. But we're not going to fear. Why? There's that grace again. Because God is with us. And as we go through this, God is with us. And I am praying for you. Robert Foster, I see it. I see it. I see it. I see it. Don't forget that you keep reminding yourself of the N word. It's natural. It's normal. It's necessary. Keep reminding yourself that you've got to give yourself time. Trust God and keep your truth. Tell yourself the truth. You can take it. God is with us. Apostle Rachel Tapper, I see you. 12 days away from your second year homecoming of Apostle Dr. Eugene Taper. I see it, my sister, praying, remembering him, and asking God to continue to keep your heart and the work that he's entrusted to your life. Hey, we're going to continue to have these conversations because they're necessary. Let's pray. Father, we love you. We thank you. Thank you for our loved ones. Thank you. Thank you for loving us. And thank you, Lord God, for doing in us what needs to be done so that we can continue to be and do what you've allowed our lives to be present for. I pray that you would keep us during this holiday season. I pray, Lord God, that you would just continue to lift our hearts because you're the God who does such. Thank you. Keep us grateful and keep us moving forward. In Jesus' name, amen. I love y'all. Thank y'all. Happy holidays. I'll see y'all soon.